wealthy white family in Mississippi. And when she went home to visit her mother, she had to go in the back door. This famous opera star. It's really crazy. You know, the whole thing didn't make any sense. And so, when I was living in Florida, was one of the times that I broke the taboo. You know, it was, it's scary. Well, it was for me. And we lived in a little small house that we'd gotten under the GI Bill, and my husband was a professor at the University of Florida, and I was in the League of Women Voters. And also, some group, and I don't think I was the original one, we formed some council on human relations, and we would have a little annual get-together, and we bring in speakers trying to educate the community about how we needed to change. And they had a young black social worker from an agency, a professional guy in Atlanta that came down every year. And so one of the league members, knowing me, said, well, could he stay at my house? And I sort of gulped and said, yes. You know why? It was very dangerous for him to stay in my house. If you ever read Strange Fruit, it's a story about that. But anyway, so I said, well, yes. And every year he'd come back and he'd stay, and by the third year he came, I was really terrified because I had one neighbor with a shotgun. They were passing the revolution around, and the Ku Klux Klan was getting activated in our community, and our names were coming up, and I was terrified that they would come and drag him off. You know, that was an actual fear. Well, they didn't, and we did get out of Oak Ridge safely before they tarred and feathered us. Out of Gainesville, Florida, we went to Oak Ridge. Well, there, the federal government, the U.S. government, had gone in and built this community. It had something to do with the atomic bomb, I'm not sure what. But they built all this housing. And they brought in all these PhDs, and Margaret Mead, who's a famous sociologist, was so thrilled by this community that had all this intelligentsia there. But guess what? They didn't build any housing where the African Americans were allowed to live, but they were bringing them in from the cotton fields and everywhere to build the damn thing. But they didn't. And so they eventually had some hutments with a, that was before my time, they had hutments with a fence around them. And some of the people in the community, the whites that had a little bit of sense, protested prior to my time. And so they had built a separate, quite separate community. Just one road, Tuskegee Road, going in from the main part of Oak Ridge. And they built housing, but guess what? They built it on a smaller scale. So when we got there, what had happened was that they had their own little school, little elementary school. And those kids that, when they left elementary school, would come over to what we call the Fusion Junior High. Well, the segregated school was not equal. And so these kids came, and they immediately got trapped into the lower whatever. And they were not trained, and so none of them ever went to college once they did that. So one day, this one woman called me who had several bright daughters, and she said the school superintendent didn't even need to talk to her. She wanted her kids out of that school. She wanted them to go to the neighboring school where they would be then prepared to go on and be in the higher tracks to go on to college. And that girls grew up to be doctors and lawyers also. Yeah. But so and she said you wouldn't even talk to her. So we eventually went to someone in the government. You see, the U.S. government had one role, but Oak Ridge was ignoring it, and they were continuing in the old way. So they took this Mr. Fairley was part of the Johnson administration, and he was in charge of all of this. So he said, we'll get